Britain, lean in, because Westminster just cracked open a door that could decide who walks into number 10 next time round. The Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, has pointedly refused to rule out a deal with Sir Keir Starmer to keep Nigel Farage and Reform UK out of government, and that single sentence could redraw the electoral map seat by seat across the country. Before we dive in, make sure you hit subscribe to Echo Britain. We're building a community that cuts through the spin, exposes the cracks in Westminster, and keeps you 2 steps ahead of Britain's shifting political drama. It happens in Bournemouth, at the Lib Dem conference, where Beth Rigby presses Davey on whether he'd strike an agreement with Labour to block reform, and he answers that he will wait to see the result of the next election, taking care only to categorically reject any pact with Reform UK as the polar opposite of his party's values. Sky News packages the exchange as the headline moment. Davey won't close the door on a Starmer deal, a framing amplified in clips and social posts through the day, ensuring the story ricochets from conference hall to living rooms nationwide. Because Davey couples that careful ambiguity with a boast, if the Lib Dems target the right seats, they alone can deny Reform a majority, building on their best result in a century and depriving Farage of the constituencies he needs to form a government, which turns tactical voting into a national strategy by another name. Sky's follow-up segments push the core question, can Davey actually stop Reform getting into power, and keep the camera trained on the arithmetic, not the theatre, which is where British elections are won or lost. The Independent's write-up notes Davey talks about a moral duty to keep Reform out, yet repeatedly sidesteps firm commitments on a formal coalition, while attacking the Labour government's record and pitching the Lib Dems as the only party championing their values, an attempt to keep leverage without spooking members wary of binding deals. Other coverage from conference circles reports a cool reception among activists to a Labour coalition, suggesting that any future understanding would likely be a looser confidence and supply or case-by-case voting arrangement, not a full programme for government, which matters for what promises can realistically be traded. Sky's political live pages thread it into a wider ground game. The Lib Dem route is local first, win councils and by-elections, then flip Westminster seats, and if they choke Reform off in suburban and southern battlegrounds, the parliamentary maths falls to pieces for Farage's route to number 10, as Davey himself puts it on air. Regional reporting from ITV echoes the confidence. The party smells opportunity in a fluid landscape, casts Farage as Trump-light, and argues that as voters tire of the 2 big brands, a muscular Lib Dem pitch can capture pivotal urban and commuter belts, especially where tactical anti-reform votes converge. Davey draws a red line under any deal with Reform while comparing Farage's project to us-style politics, warning of democratic backsliding and Americanization, a signal to centrist and liberal voters that any progressive coordination would be about values, not tribal convenience, which is exactly how one sells a pact to a skeptical base. At the same time, he insists there were no pacts last time and there won't be pacts next time, a language that preserves negotiating space after results night while framing any cooperation as respect for the electorate's seat-by-seat verdict rather than a stitch-up, a distinction that plays better with British sensibilities about legitimacy. If Reform tops the national vote but falls short in key marginals, the Lib Dems could become the hinge on which government turns, either enabling a Starmer minority to legislate or forcing issue-by-issue bargains on electoral reform, Europe ties, and civil liberties, all without the political cost of a formal coalition label, as the conference readouts and broadcast framing imply. If Reform sweeps those Tory-to-Reform corridors, the door Davey left ajar may never need opening, but if his right seat strategy lands, the British tradition of pragmatic arithmetic will take over, and that's why his sentence mattered more than any conference stunt this week, as Sky-sustained coverage underlines. Seat by seat, would a confidence and supply understanding between Labour and the Lib Dems be a fair reflection of the public mood, or a backroom fix that dodges a proper mandate, given Davey's careful wording today? If tactical voting becomes the national reflex in 2029, should parties be upfront before polling day about the deals they'd consider, or does British politics work better when the numbers, not prenups, dictate the government that follows, as the coverage suggests tonight? Here's the British truth: we govern by arithmetic, and arithmetic begins with words, carefully chosen, on live television, at party conference time, with the whole country listening for what's left unsaid as much as what's spoken, which is why Davey's wait and see may echo to election night and beyond. Subscribe to Echo Britain, ring the bell, and weigh in below. Should Starmer and Davey align to stop reform if the numbers demand it, or should each party face the nation alone and let the chips fall where they may, given everything we've heard today from Bournemouth and the broadcasters who pinned it to the mast?